Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how we doing tonight? You staying warm up in Gainesville? Is it gotten cold enough up there? How we doing?
Well, for this guy here from the Caribbean/South Florida, it's gotten cold enough in the past week. Today we saw 70. That's good. But other than that, maintaining, my man, maintaining.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, right on. Well, let's get into this right away here. We won't take too much time at the start. I got a nice review here for you of early National Signing Day as promised. Nice little class put together here, pretty strong. Again, especially considering where we were, which we will talk to. So without further ado, let's get into it. For our intro, we will, of course, do our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. This intro section's getting bigger by the day. We're going to have to make sure we don't get it any bigger. A lot of stuff in this intro, right? So our mission is always to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org. And recruiting data, most important tonight, comes from on3.com. So our vision, as always, is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film. And while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss observation of player personnel decisions as well as on the field execution. Okay, agenda for tonight. A little different because we're not reviewing a game, so we will mix things up. And we are going to talk about the changes to Florida's NIL situation for this recruiting/portal class. Have a brief conversation around that. We will then look through the overall class ranking currently and where that sits and what we feel about that and where we think it is and why and give our thoughts on that. We'll then do a player breakdown and analysis of what each player will bring to UF based on our taking a look at all the different players in this class, all 24 of them currently. And then we will do a look at what the class still needs. What are the needs that we still need to fill? Obviously, that can be through the portal, and probably will be through the portal mostly at this point. And then from there, we'll wrap things up. Just kind of give our closing thoughts and sign this thing off. So with that, let's get things started here. And let's have a conversation about some of the changes to Florida's NIL situation. So several things have changed with NIL since we last went through this process anyway. And I think even since we went through the last portal process, I think there's been changes kind of all along. This is very much an ever-changing situation. But there's a few things that have gone on. One, I think the collective in general is in a better place, right? Based on what we know from Mr. Freddie Weeby's involvement and some other things, I think overall the collective is definitely in a better place from a funding standpoint, from what's available. Some of the rumors that I've heard, Nick Delatorre commented now that he's in victorious. He's been commenting that Florida's situation, while he's not going to give you exact numbers, is in a good place. That those were his words, right? So I think overall we're in a better position than we were at this time last year, and I think you're maybe seeing some of that with the recent success that we have had, right? We'll see if that continues to play out in the portal as well. As it comes to this specific class and the portal, the other advantage, of course, is Napier's buyout or lack thereof, right? So let's talk a little about that. So what are your thoughts on how that's going to play in, and what have you heard numbers wise? I know a number that I've heard, but I'm not sure if you've heard anything different. So let's talk about how we think specifically the fact that we didn't pay Napier to leave, right? And what can we do with that money that is now theoretically or more than theoretically available to help improve the state of the talent in the program currently.
Are you trying to get me to postulate over the fact that money is involved, certain monies are involved with a buyout that could have been, that should have been, that is not going to be, that could potentially be reallocated to other areas of the program?
Yeah. We're going to go with yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, right? I don't think it's a secret as far as the vote of confidence that was backed up by Mr. Strickland and the rest of the department regarding Napier's availability, let's call it that, for the 2025 season, where he would be, and the shot in the arm that it gave for recruits in this class. Um, Depending on what kind of math you do, was the buyout 25 million, 25.2, 25.4, 26.1? Regardless of the fact, a lot of money. Not as a lot as some other coaches out there, but a lot of money. With that, now you don't have to worry about pooling monies together to pay a coach to leave, which, for the record, anybody can pay me to leave anytime. Now we can take those funds and reallocate them towards actual on the field resources. So, not sure where your sources are coming from. Multiple sources state that from the buyout funds, it looks like a chunk somewhere in the vicinity of $15 to $20 million has been taken, or I'm sorry, reallocated to invest right into players, the future of the program on the field, to build a very dynamic, high caliber team around DJ Lagway. And of course, he's going to do his part to recruit, to be that champion and cheerleader, as he's done so well. But definitely a couple things come out of this, because Nick Del Torre said it, and we heard it almost a year ago by another Gator insider in the Florida Victorious realm, is that most programs are willing to disclose what they have for NIL, and that's fine. But one thing that is unique to Florida and Florida Victorious, they're not going to disclose that amount. But based off everything else that we've heard, all signs point towards, hey, we're in good shape, we're healthy. Can there be more funds available? Sure, of course there can be more funds, right? So, and of course, we're still waiting for NCAA versus House. We're waiting for that ruling to come down and what that's going to look like moving forward. But either way, is it 15 to 20 million? I think that is a conservative range to say, okay, that's what we have available. Because here's the thing, folks. Look at, not comparing apples to apples, but look at Florida State in the field and the team that they fielded this year. That cost roughly $12 and change million. Okay, just to put in perspective. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, right? They mortgaged just about everything to win this year, to the tune of about $14.2 million. So it does pay to play. It does pay to play, B.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think that's a good breakdown. That number is similar to what I heard. I think 15 million is what I have had read. I couldn't tell you where, so I apologize for not being able to cite the source because this was a while ago. But 15 million is definitely what I read as being what would potentially be reallocated to just the player fund, right, if you will, just the fund for talent acquisition. Now, and to be clear, that's not counting what you could already have available, right? So like you could potentially have more than that. That's in addition to. Now, I'm not saying that means we're going to have 30, right? Because I think we were somewhere around the estimates, which we don't know, but the estimates were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 million for us, as it sat anyway. Maybe not quite that much, but something in that ballpark. Probably close to 10. So we're not necessarily going to have 25. That would give us the most expensive roster in the country, just to be clear, because Ohio State, I believe, is the one that is thought to have the most expensive roster currently, and they were right around 20 million this year. So that would be significantly more. Now, I don't know that. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Maybe we do go, buck wild and spend that much money. I don't know. Maybe we do. I guess it remains to be seen. But it is interesting to see, like you cited, ever since the commitment changed and was made, the amount of recruits obviously that have flipped into this class. So, does that continue with the portal? Are we able to maintain that momentum? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting because I think there's definitely some potential prospects that are already in place. Obviously, portal officially opened today, so it's been a little wild and crazy, as you might expect. Couple things have popped up that are of interest. We'll talk about that later, but yeah. So let's take a look at what the class looks like now, and kind of move into that segment here, and then we'll get back to some of that potential of what we can do with this money later when we talk about what we still need. So currently, overall class ranking is 11th as per On3. It's also 11th as per 247, just for the record, that we were actually the same on both sites, which is a little unusual. And we're eighth in the SEC, as we already discussed, which is just silly, but it is what it is. So that's the way it is in the SEC, and why it really matters, though. It's worth the mentioning why it matters that you consistently produce at a minimum a top 10 class. And I know technically this is at 11 right now, but things are not over, right? Classes are not truly final until February. And it's also important to think about the fact that this does not contain any transfer portals yet, and we like to look at the class including portal, not without portal. So 247 actually does this really well. I'll give them credit there, even though I know we always cite On3 for our data for this stuff. But 247 does a good job of compositing the portal and the recruiting class together and give you an overall ranking. On3 does not do that. They keep them separate. So 247 will be something that we do cite and look at when we get later on down the road and look at this class as a whole. And it will be interesting to see what that looks like, because we actually ended up, I believe, 7th on their ranking last year, if my memory serves. I'll have to go back and check that. But I believe it was 7th when everything was all in and done. And we looked at portal, we looked at recruiting, right? Everything all put together, we ended up 7th, which is a far cry from where we started on this date last year in 16th, by the way. And that was On3. I think we were actually lower on 247 at that time. So interesting, right? So thoughts on the class, thoughts on the ranking, just from me. Obviously, this class made a massive recovery from where we were. We talked about it all throughout the season, losing recruits, decommits, right, over and over and over again. And then things change and we start getting more interest, and all of a sudden we're getting commits, and not just commits, but flips, and not just flips, but big flips, and then bigger flips, and then even bigger flips than that. And we're just flipping everybody, as we talked about during the last pod right before signing day, and how incredible that was, and kind of where we ended up. And we didn't end up with a ton more after the ones we talked about. I think we got maybe really one more after that, but still ended up with a phenomenal class. Considering all of that, and considering where we were to start the season and everything else, this class made huge gains, and we ended up in a much better position, right? When you look at where we were somewhere maybe in the 40s or 30s, depending on which week you pick a month ago, and we end up at 11th, right? That's a massive improvement, clearly, and frankly, probably about as high as we really could have even remotely expected to get, considering where we were, right? So we played a little bit of, world's most dangerous game with this class, because we waited till the last minute to start doing something with it. While I'm all for the idea of not necessarily trying to lock everybody in early like we did last year and, try to hold on to everybody, right? I also think this was way, way, way too much too late, right? Now, again, it worked out for the most part, but I don't think this is the most effective strategy either. I think you need some kind of balance in between the two, and we lacked it either year, quite frankly, right? So we've still got to find kind of that happy medium. And to that point, I think that's probably why we still haven't seen Billy really land an elite recruiting class. As good as this class is, and as many flips as we got and everything else, this is not an elite class. Last year's class was not an elite class. It's good. They're both good. I would argue in some ways each is better than the other, depending on what you're looking for. Last year obviously had more top end talent. This year is more balanced from top to bottom. So, but has a slightly less top end talent. So it's all about like what you're seeing, what you're doing, what we're looking at. But ultimately you have to have both of those things. Now, if we had this kind of balance last year plus the top end talent, now we'd be talking about an elite class. And that's what you really need. And that's what you really have to have. But we don't have that. And that's, so it's still not there, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Now, I'll give Billy some latitude here, despite his prowess, right, as a recruiter, or at least theoretical prowess as a recruiter. He has had obstacles, right? Changes to the portal, NIL, lack of winning. That's his own obstacle, but nonetheless, These things have not made recruiting any easier on him, and that's all happened since he's been here. So he's faced some headwinds for sure. But I'm not going to make excuses either and say that if you're really this good a recruiter, there are guys who have navigated this better and done a better job with this, whether they've been winning or not. So there are other ways around it. But some of it was out of his control. And so I will give him, last year I would have given him about a 50% pass. This year it's more like 25, maybe even 20. Especially once he got that vote of confidence at the end of the year. However, that did come later. And so I think he ultimately had the opportunities, but he really did not, he didn't have it for as long, right? And obviously beginning of the season was a lot tougher. We were not putting the results on the field. We did not have that buy-in from the administration, clearly, and so there were a lot of things, again, working against him there that were not fully out of his control, because he could have potentially had the team doing better, but aside from that, they were out of his control. So again, I'll say 20-25% not on him, but that this wasn't better than it was. Again, not saying it's bad. It's not. It's good. It's just not great. And we still have to look at that, and we still have to evaluate the fact that we need to get some great classes in here if we really want to elevate this thing to the next level consistently. You've got to have great classes that come in. I mean, look at Georgia. When is the last time Georgia was out of the top 3 in recruiting classes? I don't remember is the answer, but it's been a long time. Same thing with Bama. Same thing with Ohio State, though they actually are out of the top 3 so far this year because Texas and Oregon got in there. But those programs are perennially in the top 3 or top 5 anyway. Every single year. We are not. It matters. It just matters. So, got to do better there. What are your thoughts on current state?
It doesn't just matter; it matters more, right? It's the SEC. Isn't that the slogan? It matters more.
Look at you. We do. Where's that? Hey, where's our drop for advertising for him there?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Go ahead and hit the donation button there. Oh wait, we don't have one.
Right, exactly.
So no, you got some great points overall, B. I'll just go ahead and say this, in summary, good, not great. That's almost a great novel. Here's the thing: 11th nationally compared to, I'll say this: 11th nationally, okay, but compared to where we came from, that's the biggest thing. When you look at a class that was hovering in the 40s, in the 50s at some point, okay. A class that is a quote unquote above average, run of the mill SEC powerhouse. For a class, for a school of that caliber, to have a class in the 50s or 60s was just absolutely atrocious. Now, having that been said, how do we start the season? Well, Miami doesn't help for the first game in the swamp, losing the first home opener in 3 decades. That didn't help. Okay. Then you go to
losing's a kind word to use.
Well, I know what you use a word you would use is that train wreck. Is that about okay? Fair.
That'd be a good one.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it. And then of course to Florida West, which we didn't expect that type of a showing, especially against Florida West, especially not with the backup quarterback who proved to be a little more talented than the starting quarterback in Reed versus Wegman, but that was what it was. So vote of confidence, very interesting thing. It waned. Trust me, the media took in, boy, did the media take in, right? A lot of people took in. But I'm not saying it wasn't deserved. It was really interesting as you saw this class jump up to 11th or 12th, or maybe it jumped as high as 10, and then the regression just started, and it just couldn't stop. The brakes were off, headed to the negative. That's how we got as low as 50s and in the 60s. The funny thing is, when you look at this class, I agree with you, right? In a vacuum. So over 11th nationally, okay? But then, like you said, 8th in the SEC, really?
Yeah.
Okay, it does mean more here. Can it be better? Well, sure it can, right? And here's the thing that I would submit. Given last year's class, okay, couple things. There were a couple of 5-stars in last year's class that we do not have in this year's class. Okay.
Yep.
In DJ Lagway and LJ McRae. So what
Yep.
does that do for a class? Well, 5-star does a lot. Okay. Right now, okay, 42% of our 24 commits in state, no problem. Our blue chip factor, blue chip is any player who is a 4 or 5-star rated, 58%. Okay, there's where we are. We don't have a single 5-star. Is that a problem? Yes and no. But in a vacuum, to your point, is it truly a problem? Yeah, because that's when you go from good to great to, I believe the word you like to use is elite.
Indeed.
There you go. Elite, right? To take out the Georges, to take out the dark Sith Lord who's going to come back in some capacity in college football. Who knows? Yes, I mean Nick Saban, in those classes at Alabama. Especially when you look at the pledges of the gobs of money that's developing over there in Texas, right? You look at LSU, Ole Miss, what's going to happen to them? We'll see. Oregon, look at the gobs of money that one Phil Knight has pledged to the University of Oregon.
Yep.
How's that going to impact their recruiting? You can't tell me that it won't. Okay. Another point that you made, B, that I had to change one of my points on was last year you mentioned the flips. You mentioned, okay, we thought this player was going here. This, it's really interesting because last year you finish up the season on a 5-game losing streak. Extremely, extremely unfortunate. This year, you finish the season on a 3-game winning streak. And then coincidentally, after, like we mentioned earlier, the shot in the arm, that's where all of a sudden things started happening. You get flips going in the right direction. You get commits going in the right direction. You get multiple players from the same high school, the buzz, the attraction factor. So that's what's the neat thing about this, the end of this season, this year compared to last year's season, is the positivity, the momentum, the continuity that we're going to have going into next season is huge. Again, can the class be better? Yes. But for all intents and purposes, and where it came from and what the narrative was and what the narratives were, for all intents and purposes, I mean, Napier was supposed to be gone. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He was supposed to be gone. Didn't produce. Didn't pass the eye test. Culture is great. Player personnel, great. Activity outside of the white lines of the football field, great. Record, not great. Not so good at all. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, especially to this type of a program who needs to be back in the SEC landscape, in the conversation, who needs to be back in the national conversation as not just an SEC powerhouse, but a football powerhouse to rise back to that prominence of where they were just a short while ago. So anyways,
that's well said.
That's all I got on it, man.
All right, no, fair enough. And just a thought to the point you were making about 5 stars, 4 stars, things of that nature. Classes in the top 10 without 5 stars. Would you like the count of how many there are?
1.
Zero.
Okay.
10. And the top 4 classes: Texas, 4 5 stars. Oregon, 4 5 stars. Alabama, 4 5 stars. Georgia, 4 5 stars. Once again, we have none. Well,
coincidence, I think not.
You could debatably we have one. There's one there. Our top recruit is 5-star in one service, but this is using On3's national ranking, and according to that same ranking, we have none. So it's there you go. So that's a little breakdown for you. One other little trend that I'd like to point out about the overall class is one thing we pointed to last year was our overall player ranking, because we had less players in it, but the overall player ranking was actually better. We cannot say that this year. Our class ranking, probably because we have some more players in it, is higher. But our overall player ranking is actually 19th currently. Like our average rating of player. So that's something else to keep in mind when we look at this. Not necessarily the best situation there, I would say. Um, so not totally ideal versus what you want to see for that particular number. Now that can have some variance to it, but I would say we're a little low to drop that many spots. But there's also a reason for that. And so while you look at that and you say, okay, well, that's not good. However, there's an explanation, and we'll get to that later. So it's not as bad as you might think just looking at it. So with that, let's get into some player breakdown here. Before we actually go through this year's class, I got to read this because I saw it when I was going through and looking at last year's pod notes. I'm going to read the evaluation I wrote for Lagway for last year because it's like, wow. And this is why this matters, right? This is why it's important to look at recruiting. It's why it's important to look at recruits in general and what they can potentially do and help and everything else. So just going to read this out. DJ Lagway, 5-star plus, overall 10th in the class. Max Prep's best high school player in the country last season. Dynamic dual threat quarterback with a powerful arm, but still accurate. Very solid at 6'3", 225. He's bigger than that now. Can run hard and fast. Future of UF football, to put it simply. This is the biggest yet in this class, and it means a ton. Has the potential to be an elite level college QB from everything we are seeing and really make UF a national contender again. I'd say that hits the nail on the head.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that to call out, our evaluation or whatever else. That was basically everybody's evaluation. That has nothing to do with it. The point of the story is this is why it matters. This is why top end talent matters, right? Because you get guys that are identified as being this good, like Lagway was, and then they come in and they make the impact that we've seen him have, and that he will continue to have, more importantly, right? So this is why it matters. So I left that one in there just to kind of throw that out and highlight that. Huge deal. So to that end, we will now break down this class. Let's do a little back and forth. You want to start us off with Vernell here?
Shall we?
Fire away. What do you got?
Let's go to Mr. Vernell Brown. So for those of you, that name might ring a bell in a few circles outside the fact of what he's recently done in the high school ranks, but he is one of our 2 legacy players in this class. So his father played for UF. So great story there. You always love a good legacy story when you see the son come play for the university dad played for, and phenomenal opportunity there. So right now he was over at Jones High School, wide receiver position, 5'10", 5'10" and a half, 173. 4-star wide receiver. Very dynamic. So as far as On3's industry ranking, they have him at a 95.6. I think, Ben, you said this one was going to be coin flippy as far as if they're going to regrade him at a 5.
Yeah, and he may get re-ranked at 5 when they do the re-rank. He's currently 45th overall. You have to be like top 31, 32-ish, something in that neighborhood. So he would have to move quite a bit in the overall rankings, but it all depends where the different services move him, and it's possible that could happen. 247 basically has him as a 5-star. They did have him as a 5. I think they technically moved him down to a 4. He's like 32nd on their rankings overall. So I mean, it's borderline. So he's right on the cusp. This is as close as you're going to get, but he is technically a 4-star. So
pretty much, right? And so the other thing that I like about Vernell is just a couple of points here is, besides legacy, besides everything else, as far as his tracking with Florida and the amount of time that he's been engaged with Florida, of course. I mean, when you look at the time constraint, he's been quote unquote committed since early July. So that was what it was. But a couple notes. His coach said he's a young man that you never have to question. You never look to see, right, as far as what he's trying to do. He's going to do what he's supposed to do, right? He's the type that any coach would want 10 of him. If you get 10 of him, you're going to win a lot of games. Fair, okay? The other thing that was mentioned, he's electric with the ball. He's the type of player that you find ways to get him touches. He has the ability to take over a game. can be twitchy and dynamic, quick as can be. Kind of reminds me of one Trey Wilson. Okay.
Indeed.
And not to mention, great student athlete, right? 4.9 grade point average. That's the other thing from
Yes.
a culture standpoint. He's
Yes.
definitely going to fit this team. And I know, B, we might touch on culture later on because I know there were some questions around culture and what that looks like with portal and NIL and all that. But at the end of the day, a great addition, but also a great fit for the program.
No, 100%. I had that same call out about the GPA on here. One thing you did not mention is that he also specialized in high school in kick and punt returns. Ooh, interesting.
Oh,
Would
there you
like
go.
to see if we can make a little room for him potentially, at least as a freshman. Not sure I want my dynamic play wide receiver, as an upperclassman doing that. However, as a freshman, yeah, maybe a little special teams there. Maybe Joe Houston gets a little recruiting in. Because the one thing we called for that we did not get this season, unfortunately, is a kick or punt return for a touchdown. Very sad face for me. I really wanted to see that, but maybe we can get one next year if Mr. Brown is bringing those kicks back. So one other point I want to make about him, I'm going to call out something and I will bring up why later, but he is the 6th overall rated, and this is industry, not just on 3, industry 6th overall rated player in the state of Florida. I'll come back to that later, but 6th overall rated in the state of Florida. So, and I'll explain why, like I said. So, with that, very nice get there. As you mentioned, been committed since July. Really outstanding. So solid to keep him on. Unwavering commitment there. Really never was in doubt from anything that I heard. Despite having multiple offers and I'm sure being courted and everything else, he really did not move at all. There was some talk about some other guys that had been committed for a while potentially moving. They didn't, which was nice. We did. That's one thing to call out here. We lost one guy on signing day. One guy. One.
Yes.
How many we lose last year? Right in signing week, like 8. We lost one guy, and it was frankly mutual. And we'll talk to that later. But it was well, we can talk to it right now. It was Tayshawn Gelsey, right? Is the correct name, I believe.
Correct. That's
and
it.
We lost him because
and that's mainly because of position.
Exactly, position. He wanted to play wide receiver. Florida State said, yeah, you can come play wide receiver here. Billy said, no, we want you as a tight end. That's what we recruited you for. That's where we have the opening for you for. And he said, well, I really want to play wide receiver. Florida State's going to let me do it, so I'm going to go there. We said, okay, no worries. So it was really more of a mutual thing. It wasn't even really, I mean, it is a flip, but it's not a flip like, oh, they, gave me an opportunity that looked better. I mean, I guess it is in that regard, but like in terms of like the school looked better to him. No, his opportunity to play what he wanted to play in college looked better to him because he was going to get that there. And that's totally understandable, quite frankly. So not worried about that at all. It's borderline not even the same flip like what we saw. Compared to the flips we had last year, oh my goodness, that was nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. So huge change there too. That's something to keep in mind. When you saw all those flips last season that came out on signing day, for those that don't remember, it was a lot. And again, the week of, and then we switch over to this and it's like nothing, absolutely nothing. Everybody signed. So really good there. So moving along to our first flip on this list, and there's going to be a lot of those. We may not even call them all out, quite frankly. I'm not sure I can keep track of them all. And that would be Hilton Stubbs. We talked about this last week. He is the second highest player in this class, and he flipped 2 days before signing day. So tell me that wasn't a huge get, right? Again here, 4-star, 58th overall by On3. Again, this is the composite, On3 composite, and 8th highest ranked player in the state of Florida. Again, I'll come back to why later. This is a solid safety right here with a good ability balanced between both the run and the pass game. Again, it's a player that I think could see some time early, like Castell did, but without a doubt makes us better and maybe more importantly, deeper at safety, which is a big position of need based on the play we saw on the field this season, right? Until Thornton started playing consistently, safety in general was, well, Bridges helped, but it was borderline a train wreck at safety to start the season. It pretty much was. It got better when Bridges started playing more. It got better again when he transitioned to corner and we brought Thornton into play more. But man, safety's been tough, and we need help there. So again, phenomenal flip just 2 days before early National Signing Day, and even better to flip him from Miami. Let's go. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, like we talked about last week. So I think this is a really nice get. Ton of talent here out of Mandarin in Jacksonville, along with another player on this list. We wanted a third, but hey, it is what it is. Um, and really, really nice get here. Solid player, and looks like I think has a lot of upside and potential to be, you know, he, I don't know how much he'll play next year. We'll see, but he's going to be good. He's going to be good, almost no question. What are your thoughts on Hilton?
Yeah, great overall breakdown for Hilton. I think the main thing for me is seeing him. So I did cover one Mandarin game this year, and the one thing that I'll say about Hilton is ball hawk, just absolute ball hawk. There's a big difference between speed and quickness. We've talked about this with regards to Trey, twitchiness, things like that. I love his sense for the ball and where he needs to be. He very seldom. Now, again, I know it's high school. Big difference when you make that jump into Division I, but it seems like he's got a real nose for the ball. He knows where to be. He knows how to put himself in position to succeed on the field. And if he needs to recover, he's got a really quick step, right? At 6'1", a buck 87. So that's awesome. And to your point, to get him from Miami, he had a teammate that was committed to FSU. That was a flip. And so to see what opportunities we had there, I'm sure he was in his ear. You know who I'm talking about. So great to get him as well. And that's the other thing. I think if you look at developing that safety position and getting a few more guys with a little bit more, shall I say, dog in them, you're going to see improved safety play over the next 2 or 3 years, to the point where I think opposing teams might be scared. Just saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fair enough. There's another one we'll talk about that I think really may strike some fear here a little further down the list, but I think that's a very good call out there. So, all right, moving on. Let's talk about number 3 on the list here, Mr. Ben Hanks. Why don't you get us going on that one?
Oh man, Ben Hanks. So here's another one that is going to be a legacy. Love talking about legacy players. Ben Hanks III, 6'1", 170 pounds, out of Booker T. Washington in Miami. You heard me, Miami. Quarterback. And that's the thing. When you look at the player profile, yep, he was all in on the Gators, of course, being a legacy, but boy, Miami had their shot at him. They really did. And so sorry. Too bad. So sad. Can't get it. I'm sorry. What else do you want to say other than the fact that, yeah, you had your opportunities? The thing about Ben that I really enjoyed some of the read-ups on him is quickness. Again, this is another thing too, when you look at size, okay, from a cornerback position, 6'1", 170, he definitely has the abilities to be lanky, to be sneaky. And the other thing is, I enjoy his, and here's the other thing too. Of course, his dad played for us. I enjoy the fact that he's going to gleam a lot from his dad playing in the swamp. I'm sure he's been to the swamp a time or 2 or 10 before. I look forward to him making significant impact in the cornerback position, because as we know, we need to, I don't want to say reinvent, but we definitely need some help on the cornerback position because of kind of what we've lost in a while. So outside of that,
Yeah.
there we go.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Again, 4-star overall, 69th and 11th in Florida. The
Yep.
only note I would add to what you said is that he set the single season record for Miami-Dade County for INTs in a season this year at 13. Now, if you think about the talent that has come out of South Florida in particular over the years, setting the single season record for Miami-Dade, Florida, not a small accomplishment. So,
Nope.
pretty impressive stuff. All right, cool. Moving along. The next guy on this list that I mentioned a minute ago, when we talk about some physicality, would be Mr. Lagonza Hayward. Another flip. I'm doing all the flips so far. Well, that's going to change because they're about to all be flips. But anyway,
Yeah,
4-star, number 81 overall. Another top 100 safety. So that is 2 top 100 safeties. And this one is right up your alley, buddy, as I already mentioned. 6'1", 205, described by multiple scouts as, quote, physical. And if you've seen this cat, he looks more like a linebacker than he does a safety. I love it. To put it simply, this guy is going to make the hits we like to see and should really help a secondary that frankly doesn't always tackle as well as we would like, depending on which player we are discussing, especially. I will leave said players nameless for purposes of this conversation. Still, okay. So, we'll move right along. And go from there. But no, I really like this get. I think this was a huge, huge flip on signing day to steal him away from, of course, an SEC rival in Tennessee. Very nicely done. Great get here. Love adding some physicality to that room. And yet again, more depth to the safety position at a high level of talent. Fan-freaking-tastic. Good stuff.
Yeah. I know a lot of people in Knoxville are ticked right now, because I heard it from them. I heard it from a lot of them. Sorry, and they already started calling him Shady Hayward. Did you hear about that? Shady Hayward, whatever. Okay. Either way, top 100, awesome call out there. Very, very physical. Guess what, B? I think he already has a CDL. You know why? Because he will do some trucking. Okay.
I like it.
And I love the other quote on him here as far as we like to say that he plays with a hot motor. It's like, huh? Not just a motor, but a hot motor? It's like, yeah, hot motor. Okay, fair.
Nice. Good stuff. All right. Moving along. Next on the list is Mr. Jaden Woods. What do you got for Jaden?
All right, folks. Here's Jaden Woods. Jaden Woods, a lot of similarities with Graham Mertz or Graham Cracker there. Not really, only for the fact that they're coming out of Kansas, the state of Kansas. 6'3", 235, 4-star edge. Our only edge right now, our designated edge.
Designated. I think technically we have another one, but yeah.
Yeah, designated. Okay. I corrected it, B. Don't worry. I got you, buddy. I got you. But either way, signed on November 29th. So he was one of those ones that said, you know what? Guess what? They're committed to Napier. Napier's committed to at least another year. Let me go down to, my old buddy in state here, Graham Mertz, went down to there, Florida. Let me see what it's like. Very physical. And the other thing I like about him is, as far as his reach, his ability, he can do a lot of different things. At 6'3", 235. Okay, 6'3", 235. That helps. Outside of that, guess what? Guess who else was after him? Penn State. So that was huge. You talk about a huge flip. Oh my goodness gracious. Outside of that, come out of Kansas, the number 4 rated edge come out of Kansas. That's kind of big. That's kind of big there.
I think he's actually number 4 player period out of Kansas, I believe.
It might
I don't
be
think it was just position. I believe he's the number 4 Kansas player period.
Which is kind of wild to think, right? At a 93.05 rating. But either way, phenomenal. I think he's going to be great in it because all of you know, well, most of you might know how I feel about the edge position or what I thought the edge position would do this year in someone who reinvented that edge position, who came back from injury, Jack Byburn. I really look forward to see this kid. Yeah, he's getting out of playing time. We'll see what happens. But outside of that, a great sign nonetheless, B.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I don't think I really have anything else to put on there, but top 15 in edge nationally, which is really good. So I guess I do in throwing that in there. But I think just looking at it from a Florida standpoint, besides LJ McCray, we're still really lacking in true edge rushing department on this team, right? I mean, I know Sapp did a good job. Yeah. I know Pyburn did a good job, but they're not true edge rushers. They're just not built that way. McCray is. Right. And this guy looks like he really could be. He doesn't quite have McCray's height, obviously, but he really looks like he could develop into. He's long, he's lean, right? He's really got some of the traits that you look for in a good edge rusher. So really nice to see that. All right. Moving on. Next on the list, Mr. Ty Jackson, 4-star linebacker, overall 133, 13th ranked linebacker in the class. However, key point here, rated as the number 1 inside linebacker in this class by 247. Now, I know we typically use on 3, but I got to cite this because anybody putting this guy as the number 1 rated anything, right, in any of the recruiting services is worth calling out. That is huge.
That's huge.
This staff has a real knack for pulling high-end talent at linebacker. See Graham, see Childs, see Robinson even, who was not rated as high, but man, looks phenomenal. Yeah. And we have already seen that play out on the field and what they can already do even in their freshman seasons. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff. So I'm very excited to see what Jackson can bring. Huge flip from USC here. So think about some of these flips. Yeah, sure, we talk about Tennessee and we flipped Florida State on a bunch of stuff and everything else. Flipped him from USC. Flipped the previous from Penn State. These are huge national programs, obviously, and we're getting flips out of them. Wow, impressive stuff. Hats off to these guys for making that happen. Anything else you got on Mr. Ty?
I love the fact that big USC flip signed, again, 11-24. Very, very close proximity. Seminole Rids, Loxahatchee. We went back to Loxahatchee for a couple, and it turned out well. The other thing that I will say about Jalen has been compared to former Florida State standout Jared Verse. He's studied his film. He's modeled how he's played after him. And he feels like that's a really good way to play. Straight down the line, go get after the ball. And who has the ball? The quarterback. Go get him. Hey,
that's for Wiggins, isn't it? I thought it was Wiggins who said he modeled his game after him.
Nope, you're right. I apologize. I'm one ahead.
No worries. No worries. All good. Hey, that not a problem. You're right. And hey, I like it. We're going to get to Wiggins next. So you're just getting ahead of that. Anything else you want to say about Ty before we talk more about Wiggins?
Great flip out of USC. I know USC's had a heck of a season. Obviously, Lincoln Riley, it's not going the way that they thought it would. They're spending way more than they should have, right? But outside of that, number 18 overall in Florida, 133rd nationally. Awesome pickup at the linebacking position.
Yeah, for sure. Good deal. All right, now Jalen Wiggins, the Jared Verse comp. Yes, go.
Hey, how about that? But anyways, Jalen is one coming out of James Rickards out there in Tallahassee, so that's why it makes sense, right? As far as the Jared Verse kind of modeled his game after 6'4", 4.5". 270-pound defensive lineman. Great overall comps, again, mentioned there. Or in Florida, I believe I have him as the number 23rd.
That's what I have, yes.
Yep, 23rd overall in Florida, 92.04 overall, 4-star. Again, other people after him, Georgia, makes sense. Florida State, makes sense. Florida A&M, UCF, whatever. Outside of the Verse comparison, the one thing I will say is an article I read, right, in All Kinds of Weather, I believe. It might have been All Kinds, might have been another, maybe Sports Illustrated, so forgive me on that. The one thing that I enjoyed his quote on was the fact that two of his reasons for coming to Florida, A, the culture that's being built by Coach Napier, and B, and this is a big statement, he feels like Napier can bring it back to the Meyer and Tebow days. Okay, let's see about that. But either way, Jalen Wiggins, big pickup out of James Rickards in Tallahassee. What you got, P?
No, absolutely. I totally agree. Nice call out and good call out too, and catching me on Ty Jackson being the 18th in Florida. I didn't have that in my write-up, so thank you for the catch there, because I am trying to call out all these that are from Florida and where they rank. So 18th in Florida there, 23rd in Florida here. Again, I'll get to this point when we conclude here. And another high-end, I believe, like I said, I would classify him as an edge. He's not classified as an edge, but he's planning to play like an edge, right? So he's a little
Yes.
bigger in terms of his overall size, kind of more like a sap in terms of his like weight class, if you will. But from like a height perspective and a length perspective, I think he does fit more into that edge perspective. So it's really going to be interesting to see how we end up using him. I hope we do keep him on the edge. I hope we do not try to move him inside because clearly it's what he wants to do. But I think that is the plan for him, or else I don't think he would have been intending on coming here. So,
Right.
I think that's what we're looking at with Mr. Wiggins. This is one that UGA had significant interest in and really was trying to flip on signing day. Didn't get him. We held him. Good stuff. Fighting off the big dogs for big recruits is big. I know I just use big a lot, but it's important. It's really important, and that's the only other thing I would say on him. Really interested to see what he's going to produce going forward. So, next one on the list, back to Flip City, Flipmas. I heard it called somewhere. Mary Flipmas.
Yes.
Tavares Dice, 4-star offensive tackle, overall 194, out of Georgia. Alabama? I don't remember which state he was.
Fairburn, Georgia.
Thank you, Georgia. I thought so. Really important here. I can't stress this enough, and it's something that I think you're going to see a little more of as we look at some of the other guys in this class at O-line. Athletic, but still sizable offensive tackle, 6'4", 295. Tavares is what this offense should be looking for at tackle, in my opinion. In a zone blocking system, you need tackles, especially tackles that can move. Size is honestly less important. Look at the NFL. Look at the NFL and the zone blocking teams in the NFL, which is most teams now, but nonetheless, look at their tackles. They are not what they used to be. They are not these big, lumbering 350-pound dudes anymore. They are lean, they are mobile, they're agile, right? They can move, and they can get out in space and block, which is what you have to do in a zone block a run zone blocking scheme. Excuse me, if I could speak. Really, really important. I don't know that we've really recruited that way thus far. In a lot of cases, I think we're getting better at it. I think Fletcher Westfall is starting to get into more of that mold last year. He's still a little on the bigger side, but he's got some movement. He's got some feet going on there. This class, though, looks way more like what I would expect out of a class that is designed for a zone blocking scheme. Way leaner, way more agile, way more athletic at the offensive tackle, especially position. It's less important at guard and center, though those guys do have to pull sometimes. See Slaughter and Najee on some touchdown runs this year. But regardless, they don't have to be as mobile and agile regularly as the tackles do. So really, really important stuff here. And I'm loving seeing it. I'm really loving seeing it. I think this is a phenomenal pickup. What do you got on Mr. Dice, if anything more?
Size matters. So typically, if you see a player 6'4", 6'4.5", 6'5", you're seeing on the line side, you're seeing like 325, 330, 34. No problem. Yep. But great call out on the size as it relates to the scheme. Very, very important. Another one, right? Number 27 in Georgia, phenomenal there. Offensive tackle, number 18 overall, nationally 194. Another top 200 player. Great.
Yep.
But guess what? Signed on November 30th. The flip from Auburn. Auburn, why do you want to go up there? Are they Eagles? Are they Tigers? We don't know. They're kind of confused. What is Hugh Freeze doing? We don't know. Come here. Come to Gainesville. You never have to shovel sunshine. It's beautiful. Awesome pickup. Awesome pickup.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right. Next on the list, Mr. Byron Lewis. Go ahead.
Man, Byron Lewis, this guy is going to be dynamic. Okay, so here's the thing on Byron. We have a, would you say B, Flipmas? That was good.
Flipmas,
I like it.
Yeah, I heard that. Credit to, I think it was High Top that I was hearing Mary Flipmas out of. That was, credit to them on that one. That was good stuff. I really got a kick out of that.
Awesome. Well, anyways, Mary Flipmas to you too. So here we go. Running back out of American Heritage. That's down in Fort Lauderdale. 5'10", 5'10 and a half, but 205 pounds. So you got a lot of players in that size range. Height 5'10", and some change at about 190, 192, 205. He's getting up there in size, right? because Jaden Ball, he's got a ways to catch Jaden, but
I
either
was
way.
going to say he ain't Jaden yet, but we're getting there.
Nope, we're getting there. Exactly. In Florida, number 34, nationally, number 237. So another top 250 person there. Outside of that, the other thing to mention about him is outside of Flipmus, this guy here could have gone to Florida State. Okay, that's the third, fourth player we've taken from Florida State. So sorry, Mike Norvell, not really.
Not at all.
And so great job, Jabbar Jaluk, for staying on Buyer there. Outside of that, that's all I got, B.
All right, fair enough. So just to give a little scout on him, because I like all the points there. Again, 34th in Florida, physical running back. He probably most parallels to Montrell, actually, if you're going to look at our current running back room. Not saying he most parallels to him in general, but if versus our current backs, he probably parallels most to Montrell. And so when you look at our highest rated running back recruit, of which there are 3, by the way, which is pretty remarkable, this is very much a downhill runner. He's not as elusive as some of the other backs we currently have, but how great is it to add a highly rated physical running back when we're, of course, losing Montrell this year because he's graduating? That's a great job of coming in there and finding a replacement to bring in and, bring up that physical quota that you're going to want in certain situations. And at times, obviously, we wanted it a lot this year, but just in general, right? It's great to have another physical style back come into this offense, because right now, if you look at that backfield, other than Jacoby, it's, I would say, not that Jaden can't run, or not that Ball can't run, physically, but he's more in the elusive school. Katie Daniels is definitely more in the elusive school, right? And so when you look at this, you need to add some power to that room, and they've done that here, and that's really, really good. So with that, moving on, Tramel Jones, 4-star quarterback, overall 247th recruit, 35th in Florida. So that was 34th and 35th, by the way.
Yes.
Really solid pocket passer, can flat out make throws. The kid can throw. He's going to be at Elite 11 this offseason, just like Lagway was, interestingly enough. And it'll be interesting to see how he does there. Not as much of a dual threat as DJ. He's not going to run the same way DJ can. Not to say he's immobile or something like that. He can run. But so far, the book on him is that, he's much more of a pocket passer. The comparison I saw made was actually Chris Leak, ironically. And that was just anybody that they were comparing to. It happened to be a Gator. So interesting there. But potentially a very, very high level passer, with some development, coming down the road here, which of course he will have time to do, sitting behind DJ for the next couple of years, you would certainly presume. So to that end, very interesting. Nice get here. Again, a flip, as you mentioned, from Florida State. We of course talked about this one too, but really good here. Any thoughts on Tramel?
No, outside of that, great kid. He did suffer a lower leg injury this year, so his season got cut short. But outside of that, a lot of things I heard coaches say about him on the sideline, very smart. He knows what to do with the football. He does not put the football in danger's way a lot. So that's always good, right? He knows when to throw it away, or he might know when to throw it out. So that's a good sign, definitely, especially in a young quarterback like that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, I get to say his name. Let's move on. Mr. Joseph Mbachu.
Yes, Mbachu. I tell you what, if you look at his picture, you look at it and you go, okay, got some glasses, got a nice little fro. Okay, he doesn't look too deceiving, right? Well, let's go back to the whole size thing. Okay, 6'4.5", some listed at 6'5", 280 pounds.
Yes, sir.
On the lean side, is he? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's because he's got an absolute motor.
Yep.
This guy is 4-star, number 35 in the state of Georgia. A lot of people, and if you remember, the main thing about Joseph is the fact that he was committed to Florida. Then he got coerced to go to Texas and commit to Texas. And we thought, okay, do we have a shot? Can he come back? Well, guess what? He came back finally and signed on 12-1 just 8 days ago. So look at the proximity in which these things are done. In the state of Georgia, number 35, nationally, 259. So there's another top 300. That's all I got on Joseph Mbachu right now, B.
I like it. So here's the story on him. When we offered him, he was the only offer he had. Or we were the only offer he had, excuse me. He didn't have any other offers from anywhere else. That changed very quickly once the book kind of the secret kind of got out. But this staff identified him first, like before anybody else, which is really interesting, especially in this day and age, right? But when we offered him, he was also a 3-star. He's not a 3-star anymore. He's a top 300 4-star guy, and he's probably going to keep going up potentially anyway. See how many, we probably only get one more good re-rank before this class actually finalizes, but nonetheless, really, really interesting. This kid looks ridiculous. His promise is crazy here. He might end up being one of the stars of the class. I'm going to call that out right now. This is me saying that. Nobody else has said that, but his athletic ability, you already called it, at his size, off the charts. This guy tracks as something very, very special potentially. So if we can kind of harness some of the raw ability, he's from Cameroon originally. He plays basketball as well, but he is raw. He hasn't played football that long, right? It's one of those things where we're going to have to work with him a little bit. But if we can get this right, if we can get old Chapman working with him over there, getting him fired up and getting pointed in the right direction, I love the potential of Mr. Mbachu. Good stuff here. So really excited about this one. The next one as well is really exciting, and that would be Mr. Nashawn Montgomery, 4-star wide receiver, 273rd overall, 41st in Florida, and I think possibly the most undervalued recruit in this class as far as his ranking goes. I don't think any of that's right. He has speed. He has size. He is a South Florida gem. He is really could become a true deep ball threat in this offense. Again, I think he's very underrated. And he had a ton of other interests. He had more offers, more collegiate offers than Vernell Brown did. That is a fact. You can look it up.
Ooh.
So tell me this kid isn't special when he has more offers than our 4-star, borderline 5-star top player in the class, and we're all the way down here at 273. Something doesn't mesh there. Something doesn't mesh there. This kid is loaded with talent. I think he is going to end up, again, being a very, very promising player. It would not surprise me at all, again, here on the re-rank if he does not rise significantly. Excellent pickup here, and excellent job holding off. He was going everywhere. He went to Auburn. He went to LSU. I think he might have gone to Bama. He went a bunch of different places before signing day, and we kept him in this class. Phenomenal. Great job. Hats off to the recruiting on this. I assume it was Billy Gonzalez that did this, but because he's a receivers coach, but anybody else involved, hats off. Great job keeping Nashawn. Great get. Any thoughts on Mr. Montgomery?
Well said. Yeah, no, phenomenal get there. Number 41 in Florida. There's another top 50 coming out of Florida. I know you'll make a point about that later. 6'1", 165. Doesn't seem that great, but Miami Central, right? Significant high school, a lot of competition. And one of the quotes I'll say for some of the scouting on him, Montgomery showed the ability to make plays in a variety of ways. He can get to the football. Hey, that's all we need. Awesome.
Yep. Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. Moving on. Waltez Clark. Talk to me.
Waltez Clark. Love it. Running back. Okay. 6 foot, 6'1", 190 pounds, coming out of Plant High School in Tampa, Florida. Was pursued by Penn State, USF, Oregon, Ohio State, whatever. But yes, he picked the Gators, and he has been committed to the Gators for a while. Dating back to, get this, folks, September 16th, 2023.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
He was the OG commit.
Right? Can you imagine? I mean, a lot of players don't stick around that long, i.e., well, look at all the different players that we've had committed for. I mean, DJ Lagway was the only other one I know that's committed for that much long of a time. But either way, phenomenal get there. Another top 50 guy in Florida, number 47,
Yep.
And the main thing about him at 6 foot and 190 pounds, he has wheels. Very
Yep.
shifty and joystick like as he is able to make cuts with ease. That's what I got on Waltez Clark, B.
Nice. And I totally agree. Dynamic. He can do. He can both run and catch out of the backfield, and maybe the fastest back that we may end up having back there because he's going to rival some of our slower wide receivers, not our faster ones, because our faster wide receivers are ridiculous. But our slower wide receivers, he posted a two-time qualifier for districts in high school in the 100-meter, official time of 10.82 in the 100. That's moving, especially for a running
Yeah,
back. So you don't see running backs that are typically that fast in the 100, especially at 6'1" almost. That's crazy.
yeah.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. So very interested to see. He is definitely a burner. Definitely some top end speed coming there. So yeah, that'll be really good. All right, next, Jeremiah McLeod, 4-star, number 382 overall. Solid interior defensive lineman here. At least I project him to play interior. 6'3", 285. Already in high school, that's pretty big. And he was a force from the interior in high school out of multiple different formations. 12 sacks and 14 tackles for loss in his senior year, along with 55 tackles overall, which is pretty darn impressive. When you look at the position he's playing, for on the D line, that's not a position you typically rack up stats at like that. So pretty impressive stuff, right? He's not an edge rusher and he's got 12 sacks. That's good. Really great potential here at a position where we are losing some key talent, right? We are losing some interior D-line guys. Slackman gone, Dez gone, Cam gone, right? These guys are all graduating or out of here, right? They're moving on. They're out of eligibility. So really good stuff to get some potentially solid stuff here, along with our next recruit as well. But first, any thoughts from you on McLeod?
Yeah, J-Mac, great pickup, 6'3", 285, another one with great size, and another one who's been committed to the Gators for a while, dating back to May 2nd of this year, and another top 50 coming out of Georgia, Leesburg,
Yep.
Georgia. Awesome.
Nice, good stuff. So our next one is really the big boy on the inside, Mr. Shivers or Shivers. I think it's Shivers though. Stephon Shivers. Talk to me about him.
I would agree with that. Yeah, Shivers for sure. Oh man, 6'4.5", 300. You mentioned I said earlier 325. 380 pounds coming out of Brentwood Academy, Humboldt, Tennessee. And again, this is significant. The sign date, November 18th, 2024. Just a short while ago. Okay, so he entertained offers from Georgia, from Vanderbilt, from Arkansas. Definitely, there's a lot trucking on this guy here, mainly because of his size. When you look at a player comp, GB, who do you think at that size he could best be compared to, especially coming off the D line?
I mean, if it ain't Big Dez, I don't know who else to do it with. If you're talking current Florida
Exactly.
players, anyway.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Obviously, Dez at 420, whatever he was, he's got him by a few pounds. But either way, great job, Gerald Chapman, staying engaged with him to land him, because especially when you look at in the state of Tennessee, number 16. That's significant, especially when you look at Vanderbilt that was coming, Tennessee coming, Arkansas. So a great pickup there. Great kid. And he's definitely going to have some impact on that D-line, B.
For sure. And you mentioned all those schools, but didn't we flip him from Georgia? Isn't that where he
And
was committed?
that was a big flip from UGA.
Yes, indeed. Nice stuff. Nice stuff. So, a quick pause here. This is our last one in the top 500. And for those keeping score at home, that is 15 players in the
15.
top 500. 15. That's pretty good. So this is what we were talking about with the overall balance of talent in this class. And I can also tell you that at the bottom of this list of actual skill position players, which we'll get to in a minute, and again, why this overall player ranking was lower, the lowest one is going to be 765. Last year, our lowest one was like 1,300, was like double that. So very interesting when we're looking at this and looking at the comparison here. A lot more top end talent as a balance in this class than what we had last year. So very, very interesting stuff. So coming back briefly to Mr. Shivers here. Again, I think it's Shivers. Apologies if it's Shivers, but I think it's Shivers. Serious size. You already mentioned it at the interior defensive line. And again, this is how you work to replace Big Dez. Hard to replace Big Dez, but this is a great effort at it. So really good stuff there. All right, moving along. Next up, 3-star tight end Micah Jones. Overall 588th. Big, solid tight end that can already run routes. I watched some film on this kid. He looks good running routes. He looks good catching, and he might look best blocking, which in this offense, obviously, is a tight end very, very important. It's something that they're very much asked to do, right? I think it may be why you see Boardingham hitting the transfer portal, because he didn't do it so well this year. It's also why I don't think you've seen Amir Jackson on the field yet, because he did not do a lot of blocking in high school. This kid did a lot of blocking in high school. I watched it, and he's quite good at it. He straight up pancaked a linebacker in one of the plays that I watched. It was impressive. Very interested to see how he'll factor in the offense, and potentially early, again, with Boardingham hitting the portal. So it would not shock me if we saw him on the field next year, quite frankly. With his size and his ability already that I see, wouldn't shock me at all. What do you got on Micah?
Yeah, Micah, great stuff there. Be number 16 in the state of Mississippi. We'll take that for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to put some things in perspective. He's listed 6'4", 250.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big boy.
He can block. I saw the pancake. He's a bruiser. Guess who else is 6'4", 250? Well, 6'3.5". A guy named King Henry. So I get it, different positions, but either way, that's the type of size, that's the type of body type that we're working with at that tight end position, I think is going to absolutely flourish.
Yeah, he's got a lot of promise. And again, he's got good hands. He can run good routes from the film I saw. He's not a burner. He doesn't have a ton of speed for his size, right? He's not Vernon Davis out there setting, combine records in the 40 at tight end. But nonetheless, everything else looks really, really good on this kid. So I'm excited about him. He actually is one of these ones that's further down the list that makes you go, wow, really? He's this far down? So, sometimes these rankings, I don't know if they always get them fully right. But anyway, moving along, talk to me about Mr. Medlock.
All right, Jahari Medlock. This one, awesome kid. All right, coming out of Georgia, top 100, ranked number 73, coming out of Charles Drew High School. They're in ATL, offensive tackle, 6'5", taller guy, but 275. So we talked about the ability to block and move within, especially when you look at run blocking there, the ability to have some pace and tempo about you, not just take up space. He has that. Great hips, great feet, and the ability to move.
Yep. Again, love it.
Yeah, and the other thing about him, a flipper, again, Cincinnati, again. And then outside of that, the only other thing I had for him was he's another top 100 Georgia kid, number 73, coming out of Georgia.
Nice. So you said it, 591 overall. I interestingly, I have 6'6" and 278. So here we go with stats that don't match.
Great.
I believe mine came from 247 on that because I didn't see it on On3. So, but whatever.
Gotcha.
But he currently plays both O-line and D-line in high school. Interesting. Not sure that I've really seen that much of that happen. Certainly seen two-way players before, but I don't know if we see him on the line of scrimmage two-way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So again, really good to see some more mobile looking guys coming in to play the tackle position in the zone blocking scheme. Period. That's really it. All right, moving along. Mr. Miles Johnson, 3-star linebacker out of Alabama, overall 692. Again, I question the rating. Physical inside linebacker. Again, this guy is impressively built. Very much looks the part. A lot of upside and potential. He's not polished, and I guess maybe that's why you're seeing the ranking where it is. But the raw talent, the raw physical ability and traits on this kid look through the roof. When you look at this staff and how they've been developing linebackers, as we've already mentioned, right? I'm extremely interested to see if he can come in and make an impact. He has all the physical tools and then some to do so. Very, very interested to see what Mr. Miles Johnson looks like. You got any thoughts on him?
Yeah, 6'1", 220. He doesn't look 6'1", 220. When you look at that profile pic, you look at the way his shoulders are and his arms are. He looks like a force to be reckoned with, especially the way his demeanor is. Now, the other thing is coming out of Alabama, number 32 overall in the state of Alabama. We'll take that, and
Yep.
and a big flip from University of Alabama.
Very true. I'll flip a while ago, but true. So, very good. All right, next on the list, I'm gonna let you pronounce it.
Luis Tunkara.
Very
All
nice.
right.
Very nice.
I appreciate that. Wide receiver position. Okay, we got a 3-star. In Texas, top 100, number 97, nationally 694, 6'3", 195, League City, Texas. Is that close to Willis? Maybe. But either way, I'm sure he would like to follow in the footsteps of his former mate of the state of Texas, Mr. DJ Lagway. Great kid overall. Outside of that, I don't have a whole lot of information outside of a great flip from Arizona.
So all I've got on it, but I'm sorry. Did you have something else? I probably didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and outside of that, just outside of the flip from Arizona, I mean, he had offers from Arizona, Wisconsin, Kansas, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. So multiple schools were after this kid for a reason.
Yes. So I think when you look at size, you called it out, right? 6'3", I believe, right? So definitely got some height, has the athletic ability to go up and win some 50-50 jump balls. And he also has he's solid in his speed. He's not a burner, but he's fast enough, right? So when you look at a combination, when you can get some height with some speed, what does that create? It creates an excellent downfield threat, right? Again, a deep ball threat here. They've already kind of identified him as a potential replacement for Badger, as being that's who I heard the comp made to. Obviously, Badger's not that tall, but definitely potential for that. Though I think Badger might be 6'2", actually. I'd have to look it up, but definitely has the potential to do some things in the downfield passing game here. I think in this offense, maybe not next season, but definitely in seasons following that. So very, very interesting there. All right. Next on the list, Mr. Chad Gasper, the final running back on the list, 3-star, overall 735. Third running back, as mentioned, and I think running back is looking attractive to recruits. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think so? Do you think Trevor would say so?
Oh, that
yeah.
name?
Yeah, I know you don't say it, but I will. And I heard he might hit the portal too. I would laugh my face off if he goes in the portal again. Another good looking all around back here. Some decent cutting ability. Again, I watched tape on him. Good speed, good cutting ability, kind of like an all-around back. I would put him in the mold of like Jacoby Jackson, right? He's not going to break anybody's ankles. He's not going to run anybody completely over, but he's solid, right? So that's who I would draw a current comparison to. I'd be interested to see if he can potentially have an impact somewhere down the line. I don't think we're seeing him on the field next year, certainly. Maybe not even the year after that, but he can definitely get in here and play at some point. This running back room is obviously very deep. I think we have 7 now. Pretty remarkable stuff, but it's really going to look good. I guess it'll be 6 with all the outgoing, but still, very, very nice looking room here. So, any thoughts on Mr. Gasper?
So the main thing about him, I would say, is great stats, right? 5'11", 5'10 and a half, 5'11", 195. I think that's probably the reason why he's not rated a little bit higher, because the size, right? We probably need to see him another couple inches taller or another 5 to 10 pounds heavier. Outside of that, he was pursued by Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska. So it's really good to see that the train that was after him. And again, another one coming out of Texas, 108th in Texas. And he's been with us for a while, signed on May 10th of this year.
And to your point, if Ohio State wants you at running back or wide receiver, you're probably pretty good, because though they tend to recruit those positions, relatively well. So
right.
just a thought. All right. Next up on the list, Mr. Daniel Pierre-Louis. Talk to me.
All right, so DPL. Yeah, there we go. Here's what inside offensive line, 6'4", 290. Good height, good size overall, the ability to move, the ability to turn, the ability to shift. Another one out of Loxahatchee. This is the third one out of Loxahatchee, okay? In the state of Florida, number 96, top 100, 765 nationally. Okay, whatever. That's fine. It was what it was. But outside of that, a huge flip from FSU. Big deal there. And the other thing about this guy here that I really enjoyed was all the things that the coaches had to say about him. Great motor, doesn't need any help with motivation. And again, this is another one that I think heard the narrative of what was happening within FSU. No disrespect to them, actually, yes, all the disrespect to the world,
Yeah.
and really great
All day.
really great to have, and then also a great job by DeCosta for going after him, tying in the Haitian heritage, making that connection, and really following up with him, right? Calling him pretty much every day to check in. What's going on? How are you feeling? How are you doing? So great job, Jonathan DeCosta. That's all I got, B.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. You said it, interior lineman with good size, though I think he's a little underweight for the interior lineman still, but I'm sure that Mr. Tyler Miles will help out with that. He's shown propensity there to do pretty good. But he shows really good potential, like you said, and love the motor for sure. He's going to have a couple years of development, probably at least one, probably two, but that's okay because, I mean, that's what happens in the SEC anyway. You don't see true freshman offensive linemen out there playing pretty much very, very rare. So, all right. Now, quick pause here, and I'll make my point now before we get into the non-skill position guys that are in this class, and why this class average player rating is lower, by the way. But so we had some numbers here, and I want to go back through them real quick. Vernell, 6th in Florida. Stubbs, 8th in Florida. Ben Hanks, 11th in Florida. Ty Jackson, 18th in Florida. Jalen Wiggins, 23rd in Florida. Byron Lewis, 34th in Florida. Tramel Jones, 35th in Florida. Nashawn Montgomery, 41st in Florida. And Waltez Clark, 47th in Florida. I know we had more in Florida after that, but those are all names in the top 50 in Florida. Why do I bring this up? Because Florida, though they actually just fell one spot behind California, which is unusual, puts the third most players in the NFL of any state in the country. They currently have 149 on active rosters. And again, that just shifted, and California just passed this at 151. Texas is number one. Not a surprise there because of population and football in general, right? Though there has been a time where Florida has been number one on that list, just for the record, but it's not anymore. But we are behind California, and correct me if I'm wrong. We're just behind California, and what's the most populous state? Oh, California. Oh, okay. So when you look at it from a percentage population standpoint, it's huge. So this is not an unknown fact, certainly, and probably some people might have suspected this is where I was going anyway. But Florida puts talent into the NFL. There's just no question around it. So when you have that many guys in the top 50 rating in Florida in your class, big deal. Big deal. Not a small thing at all. The odds are many of those guys end up in the pros. Many of them, multiple of them. So very, very interesting stuff there. Really quality things to look at. And a point that I really wanted to make and why I was calling out where we were ranking out in Florida. I'm not saying they all get there, but I bet you easily half of them do. I'd be shocked if half of them don't end up in the NFL. So really good stuff. And obviously you got to be pretty good to do that. And that means they're going to be pretty good Gators, right? Assuming they stay, of course, which you do have to caveat that. But nonetheless, all right, moving along. Now, why is our average player rating so low? Well, we have a kicker, we have a punter, and we have a long snapper in this class. And I can assure you that kickers and punters and long snappers do not grade out well in their overall national ranking. In fact, I haven't even included it in my national ranking, even though On3 does for the kicker and the punter. Props to them. They do not have our long snapper in there though, because he doesn't even rank. But that will bring down your average player rating when you have guys in here that are not skill position, and yet we need them. We need them to be in this class, right? So to that end, as we already mentioned previously, Evan Noel, 3-star, however, the number one kicking prospect on 3, count them, 3 out of 4 recruiting services, not just on 3, not just 247. It's either Rivals or ESPN as well. All have them as the number one kicking prospect in the country. This kid's good. So huge flip here, getting him from Ole Miss, Arkansas. Where'd we steal him from? I don't remember.
Arkansas.
There you go. Heck of a flip. multiple services number one, as I mentioned. Huge get here because Trey has only got 1 year left. So
Yep.
really important stuff. Any thoughts on Mr. Evan before we move on?
Yeah, great opportunity here, and you are correct. It was on 3 24/7 and ESPN that has him ranked number one.
There you
And
go.
his first name is Evan. We had another successful kicker by the name
Oh,
of
yes, we
Evan,
did.
Mr.
Yes, we
Next
did. Very good call
year's,
out there.
right? So if he can follow in those footsteps, those kicking steps, we will be just fine for the next 4 years.
Very nice point there. And I wonder if we didn't see special teams improve this year, if we didn't see Joe Houston come in and do the things that he did, but we've landed this guy. I'm very confident the answer is no. So
Yeah.
credit to Joe Houston on this one and the next one in Hayden Craig. Talk to me about Hayden.
Hayden, the pride of Maine, coming out of North Bridgerton Academy, the punter position, 6'2", $190, number one rated in Maine, number 6 punter overall, and 2,262 nationally, whatever. On 3, rated him, let's see. On 3 had him number 3, 247, 7th, and ESPN had him number 14th. And then come out of state of Maine, of course, number 1, 1 and 1. Here's the thing. We've seen the Aussie influence in punting, right? For obvious reasons. It would have been nice to have another Aussie in there, but boy, this kid looks like he can boom the football. He's got some really great write-ups on him as far as his overall player ability. So, hey, with Crawshaw, obviously a national punter, phenomenal job he's done over the past few years. Hopefully Hayden can continue that great punting tradition at Florida.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm fine with it not being an Aussie because for my money, the best, without question, best punter on Florida in the history of the program is Tommy Townsend. And
Tommy Townsend.
So, I mean, and I don't think it's close, by the way. I've never seen anybody punt football like him as far as his precision and control and the way things he can do with backspin. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you watch him in the
wild
pros,
man.
He's still doing it, man. He's special. And so, and I'm not knocking Aussie, certainly. I don't think there's certainly a reason why they're so good and why there's so many of them playing college ball. And certainly Crawshaw's been a great one. However, I really think that if you've got talent, you've got talent, and it looks like this kid does. So I'm excited to see him. Don't know that he's going to start as a freshman because that would be the case, right? Because Crawshaw's done after this year. So it'd be interesting to see if he does play next season or not. He might. Certainly you can putt as a freshman if you're good enough, but we'll see. So that'll be interesting to take a look at and see if we use Crawshaw's backup from this year, who I don't know who that is. Full disclosure, it's one of the rare players on the team I don't know, but we will see who ends up playing next year and if in fact Hayden gets the start. Last but not least, Mac Mulhern, another 3-star, unrated 3-star by On3, but he is rated only by On3 as the 10th best long snapping prospect in the country. Very important. Long snappers, you got to have them. You only get one, right? And Rocco's been a great one. He's been an absolute great one, but he's gone as well. He's a senior, so he's done after this year. So we have to bring in somebody to replace him. Nice looking get here from all the measurables that we can see in Mac Mulhern. Obviously, there's no film on him or anything like that, but I assume based on the ranking from On3 that he's pretty decent. Any thoughts on Mac before we wrap up the player breakdown?
Yeah, all I have to do is look at Mac's mugshot here on 3, and this kid means business. Okay, outside of that, right? Okay, number 10 long snapper, 33 in Arizona. Cool, whatever. Look at that mugshot and tell me that he doesn't mean business. Oh, and by the way, as a follow-up, we have Nicholas English, true freshman punter. Is about 6'5", 242 out of Dallas, Episcopal. So he is Crawshaw's backup.
Thank you. Nice find. Well, then we'll see who gets the job next season. Good stuff.
Right.
All right. So to that end, that is your 2025 recruiting class as it stands today. Certainly can still change, as we mentioned, and we will go through it again, including the transfers and all the portal pickups and everything else in February once it closes out. Obviously, we have a spring portal as well. We will discuss any additions that happen then, but we will do a full breakdown of what the whole class looks like. Anybody that has been added since, we will do the similar style breakdown to what we've done here, and then look at what the overall class looks like. So to that end, what do we still need from the portal? Give me your thoughts, please, Mr. Randy.
Yeah, B. So keep it real short and sweet. We know we only have one QB committed, no problem. We have Mr. DJ Lagway, who we assume will be at the helm for at least the next 3 years. Awesome. Wide receiver position, we were able to get 3 there. Running back, 3 there. Really cool. Safeties, we have Mr. Hilton Stubbs, right? Shady Hayward, awesome. We got 2 there. Would have liked to see one more safety. Cornerback, 1 cornerback. That's Ben Hayes. I would like to see another cornerback or 2. Edge, we have Mr. Woods, awesome, right? Would like to see probably another edge. Linebacker, we got 2 there. On the defensive line, picked up 3, right? So, 4. So that's good there. Offensive tackle, only 1 in Tavares Dice. Would like to see another offensive tackle. Jahari's in there too. And obviously Daniel Pierre-Louis, inside line, offensive lineman. But outside that, we know how much impact that offensive line has to this offense. We really need some continuity and some great skill players on the offensive line. So I'd like to see more there. Tight end, we added Micah. Okay, awesome, not bad. Hayden Hanson's coming back. That'll be fine, no problem. Arliss is going to be out, but outside of that,
I liked Livingston. He looked good.
Like living exactly. Tony's going to step up. He's going to have a bigger role, and he's that bigger body that is going to be able to block, and he's going to enjoy blocking some people. So yep. There you go, B.
All right. So your takeaways are which positions? Sorry, I heard you talking about everything that we did get and didn't get, but what positions would you say we need to focus on?
Yeah, outside for me, it's going to be the safety position, cornerback position, because obviously we're down a significant corner this year.
Yep.
And then outside of that, the offensive line, specifically what the offense is going to do with regards to the guard and tackle positions to really protect DJ this coming fall.
I like it. So I have both of those. I have a corner / safety to add some depth, right? Because I think when you look at it, we are losing, especially a corner, Marshall and Bridges. Call Bridges a corner or a safety, and we never know about Moore's health, right? I love Devin, but he can't stay healthy. So when he plays, he's great, but we can't keep him on the field. Now Cormani's going to have another year of development. That looks good. Dijon has looked phenomenal playing corner as he's come in. So I think we definitely have people there. We lost, of course, Jakeem Jackson to the portal. I'm worried about that. He didn't really play anyway. So that's fine. But, and we still have some guys behind him that are interesting. Grimsley looks like a heck of a prospect. He'll be a sophomore next year. Definitely, I think, can play. Teddy Foster's still back there. Interesting to see what he can potentially do, right? So we don't not have bodies as corner. And these are all corners I'm mentioning, no safeties, right? I think safety is actually probably where you potentially need more, right? Now, I don't know what Asa Turner's going to do. It hasn't been announced yet. He could technically apply for a medical red shirt and come back and play again. He played half of a game, right? So he could come back. I don't know. We'd have to see if he decides to mess with that idea or not. I don't know what he's thinking. But wouldn't mind that. But obviously, depth wise there, you've got Thornton, you've got Castell, unfortunately. You've got potentially Turner coming back. DJ, I believe, DJ Douglas, I believe, graduates. But then behind them, right, you've got some of the younger kids, right? You've got Gregory Smith, who looked really good coming in. You've got potentially Josiah Davis, who might play nickel or safety, right? He could play either one. So you've got him potentially coming in the room as well. So you've got some opportunities behind them there that could potentially play these positions. So I think we need what the problem is that there's not a lot of experience there outside of Castell and Thornton. Right. If Asa doesn't come back, who's got experience? Nobody. So that's where I think you need to add somebody experienced in the room, right? Especially at safety, to your point. I think the same thing at wide receiver, because when you look at wide receiver and what's coming back next year, that from a talent perspective, Trey will be back, and he's obviously got experience and a lot of talent, and that's great. But aside from him, you got Mizell, who saw the field some this year, but not a ton. And other than that, who's been out there? Tank barely saw the field. He should have seen it more, but he didn't, right? And I'll be excited for him to play more next year. But we don't have a lot of experience going around out there. So we need at least one experienced wide receiver. There's already one in the portal. Looks great. Eric Singleton Jr. just hit the portal out of Georgia Tech. He's caught over 700 yards 2 years in a row at Georgia Tech, and that's in an offense that doesn't pass the football. They run the football. So that's a really, really potentially interesting get. I would love to see if we can get Eric down here. That looks really, really nice. Got good measurables too. I think we also need an edge rusher because, as we mentioned, the guys we have coming in, they're young, they're freshmen. We saw even LJ McCray, who's a physical prototype to play edge.
Oh
He didn't
yeah.
even play edge that much, right?
Yep.
So it takes time. Now, he's obviously going to play next year. And of course, Sapp is coming back, which is great. Well, we don't know that for a fact, but I would assume he is. So when you look at that, we technically have some guys on the edge, but we need more depth and we just need more solid players at edge. So I'd really like to see that. Definitely agree with you on O line. We're losing Crenshaw Dixon at left tackle, right tackle. I would love
Right.
to see if we could get a left tackle and let Barber go back to right tackle where he is at his best, as we have said time and time again on this pod. I would really, really like to see that happen, but I don't know if it will or not. But regardless, we definitely need an O-line pickup, preferably a tackle, right? Because we're losing him. I don't want to see Waits play tackle again. That was ugly. I don't want to see it anymore. Let's not have that happen, right?
Yeah.
Fletcher could potentially play next year, so
Yeah.
Westfall could potentially come in. That's a possibility, right? But you'd really like to see an established guy as well for depth purposes, right? You'd really like to
Mhm.
see that. So I'm with you there on the offensive line, especially again the tackle position. I think that'd be a nice pickup because all these guys we signed, that's great, but they're not playing next year. None of them are even close. Westfall was better than any of these guys from a recruiting profile standpoint, and he didn't play as a freshman more than a couple of snaps. You just don't see it. It doesn't happen in our league. Not in the SEC, man. It just
Yeah.
not a thing, right? They're not big enough. They're not experienced enough. They just don't have the size and strength to do it yet. So, be really interested to see what that looks like. By the way, shout out to the offensive line, first team All SEC, Mr. Jake Slaughter announced today. Phenomenal
Yeah.
stuff. Way to go. Only first team SEC player we had, which I find a little questionable, but we'll leave that alone. Not saying that we shouldn't have had a ton more, but I think one more might have been appropriate. But regardless, great job, Jake. Glad you made it. We didn't have any last year, so hey, it's better than zero. Um,
Oh yeah.
so good stuff there. Um, so yeah, that's my breakdown. So very similar to yours. I would just add on the edge rusher and the wide receiver, I think, to what I think I'd like to see as well. And I think actually the wide receiver might be the one that I want to see the most. Because they're very available in the portal too. That's the other thing, right? They're easier to come by, potentially anyway. We'll see. We'll see
Yeah.
how much of that money we can spend on it, right? So we will definitely revisit that. So just to wrap this up, really enjoyed looking at the class in depth and what it could mean for the future, right? It's always nice to look at the future and where the talent is coming in. And again, it's a very solid class, right? Again, especially considering where we just were a month ago, right? Really solid class, but there is still work to be done. We still might have a recruit or two or uh, technically a transfer, right? Like Grimsley was last year. Technically, he was a transfer. We could get something like that. But the portal's got to be hit hard here. We got to be quicker than we've been, quite frankly. Billy can't be as deliberate with this as he's been in past years. We can't wait around. We've got to get the ball rolling here and make sure that we um, make moves on this in a way that makes sense before we close this thing out and get to National Signing Day on February 5th. So that's what I'm looking forward to see. What are you looking forward to in the next couple of months here before we get there?
The momentum to continue. The momentum, go in the portal, get some value add, get some great players who want another opportunity, who want to come south, and to showcase their talents and on a stage like the SEC here in the Swamp. I don't know, man. I really don't know what to expect out of the next few weeks outside of they're going to work hard. They clearly have a phenomenal game plan. And will they get behind the eight balls? I don't think so, because I think it's all full steam ahead, knowing what's to come in 2025. And in addition, knowing what's expected. So
I like it.
those are the two key things that we can take from this momentum train just continuing on.
I like it. Well, I hope you're right, and I hope we see some movement in that direction here sooner than later. Maybe we even have some to talk about next week as a anecdotal piece. Speaking of next week, we will be doing our season recap next week. I know we haven't had our bowl game yet, but we do our season
Yeah.
recap based on the regular season because that's
Yep.
what we make all our predictions and projections about. So we will go back through, do a season recap for 2024 next week. We will also do a little bowl game preview with Keep It or Pitch It and some Sims for our recently announced Gasparilla Bowl date with Tulane, which is an interesting matchup. Not necessarily the one I think we were expecting. However, could present some challenges. So we'll take a look at that, see what that looks like, and yeah, we will go from there. So that is what is on tap for next week on Monday for what we will be bringing you as far as our content wise. And then the following Monday, we will do the bowl game recap, go through our standard, game review for the bowl game before we take a holiday break. So with that, I don't think I have any other notes to make here. Anything else you want to hit on before we close this out?
No, that's awesome, my man. Good job going through it. Obviously, a little bit longer of a pod. Hopefully, those of you understand how and why. But either way, great to take a deep dive into the incoming class there. And like you said, look forward to what's going to happen within the transfer portal. So let me go ahead and sign us off wherever you are, whenever you may be listening. Thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.